Welcome, everyone. Peace and love from the Atlantean consciousness, your bright light of truth in a sewer infested swamp. I'm Grandmaster Thor Templar, and I will be your guide as usual. And this is a continuation of the media audios. And there are many of these to come. There's an awful lot of media to discuss, and the burgeoning, exploding cable network shows in ghost hunting and etc. are to come. But what I'm going to expose is the myth of the Mythbusters. Yeah, the Mythbusters, that television show that has just recently been canceled, that was on for, was it 10 years or 11 years? And a show that I have watched basically from the beginning. It's just kind of interesting and different. The problem with this show is that they are like most frauds, like illusionists, stage magicians. They somehow want to constantly come out and make themselves experts, and even come out to kind of show people, or to give the opinion that they are scientists or people that have went to school and have studied some sort of science, or done anything that would be applicable for them doing a show like this, which is basically a show where they take myths or urban legends and try and actually perform the same thing that was thought in urban legends to be real, and even try and duplicate things that are in movies. So if you see somebody flying across a moat in a movie, carrying someone on their back, they try and copy that and see if that actually can be done. So it is fun, but of course it's almost kind of silly when it gets to movies, because, is anything in movies real? Well, it's about as real as their show. And there are lots of urban legends. It kind of escapes me of thinking of them right at this particular moment, but things like shooting people over fences, catapulting people over fences using trees and other things. But there are, they've had 10 years of these shows of testing things. Can you make a bullet swerve that comes out of a gun? Things like this, which I think was done in the movie Wanted, where they swerved bullets, that kind of almost making them go around in corners or objects. Things such as this. So if there's any urban myth of somebody doing something, falling out of a plane, falling 20 stories, and surviving, is this possible? And they look into it. So the premise is kind of interesting, and I guess that's what kept viewers going for 10 years. And as I said, I've enjoyed watching it in general. But they've always had a particular problem with metaphysics, and the two stars of the show, the main stars, Jamie Heineman and Adam, seem to be this hardcore conservatives. They know what's going on, and of course, since they are the Mythbusters, they know what's real and what's lies and everything else. The same kind of attitude that these annoying illusionists have, that just because they know magic, illusion, because they can trick you, they somehow think that everything metaphysical is impossible and a trick, because they can somehow do the same procedure, like, let's say, bending a spoon, and they can trick you to bend a spoon because someone else claims to do it with their mind. So because they can trick you and do it as an illusion, that this in some way means that everyone is doing that, and it's impossible to do it psychically, which has been proven literally tens of thousands of times to be incorrect, because almost anybody can bend a spoon psychically for themselves, and has been done for many years. And you can prove it to yourself. But since somebody can fake doing it, everything is fake. I mean, the premise of that is so bizarre that it doesn't even make sense, which means if someone imitates anything, it means that whatever the real thing was is fake. So if somebody does an imitation of John Travolta, the actor, then that means the actor himself is fake. There's no John Travolta. Somebody imitated him exactly like that. Nobody knows the difference. I mean, that's the kind of ridiculous premise those things are. And, most things in life can be imitated. People do this all the time with all sorts of things, from products to foods to everything else. Is it as good as the original? Well, generally it never is. It may be close. But you certainly can imitate things. It doesn't make the original false. Well, I imitated vanilla ice cream, so the original vanilla ice cream wasn't really vanilla ice cream, because what I have is the really. Well, what does that mean? The absurdity of that is just, it's beyond comprehension. Of course, that's what these illusionists do, because they think that anything, which doesn't make any scientific sense either, because anything is possible in the world based in science and based in the fully and 100% accepted quantum physics. Nothing is really real until somebody even observes it. And when the observer observes something, it changes it. Now, of course, none of these people want to believe the statements of scientists unless it agrees to what they say. And, of course, they want to put up buffoonish morons like Einstein and criticize these things, as Einstein said it was spooky action at a distance. That was supposed to be making fun of the conclusions of quantum physics, which basically run the world now. Quantum physics is responsible for all the major technologies we have today. And if we would have still went by buffoonish idiot Einstein, who thinks, well, we could only go so fast. Well, that's ridiculous. What do you mean can only go so fast? And then he gets all his buffoonish buddies. Yeah, he's right. Yeah. I said the same thing, You go 55 miles an hour, and if you will rip off. You cannot go more than 55 miles an hour. Your face will rip off. They've said these things. There's just endless scientists who've said all these things. We all know that the universe is nothing at all like we've been said. The planets are moving around. There's all sorts of things going on. And it's just really a joke of what science is now that we have telescopes in space that are seeing things and what's going on, is that all of the things that we assumed was correct are pretty much not correct, and they're very greatly different. So it's just one pile of stupidity basing on schmientists' opinions, and then they disprove themselves, which is what any good science is supposed to do anyway. So, what does all that reality mean? What's even worse is when you get these non-scientists, and I don't particularly like anybody, if anybody's listening to me, but I mean, scientists tend to be a bunch of idiots in general. And to have them test psychics or, in general, people that have, quote, paranormal skills, or what we consider normal skills, having them do that is kind of silly, because they're either stupid, don't know how to do it, prejudiced against it, or are easily misled, as the unamazing Randy did by sending in con men to scientists who they were able to easily con. Because the scientists wanted to make a name for themselves, and you got to remember that science is like any other field. They're worried about money and ego and not about results. So you need professionals in there, and there's certainly no problem with having someone make sure there's no fraud involved in everything and anything, period. We should have that going on right now with all the fraudulent medications that are made that we know don't work, and are still given to the public and may even kill them. Maybe we should be checking those things out a little more. And the utter gall of people to appoint themselves experts and then to give the illusion that they are somehow technically trained scientists or professionals is really obscene. Talk about fraud. I mean, they talk about maybe, which are a lot of people, are very well-meaning psychics and magical people, and they may not have the abilities they think they have, or they may be limited, but a lot of these people are very well-meaning, and they are not perpetrating that they are scientists or great in anything. They claim they have this ability, and any real psychic or magical person understands the amazing limitations that they have. And they also understand the amazing hits that they get, the amazing rituals that come out, that come out in favor, that produce great results, that influence people, that people are able to do psychic readings and mediumships and talk to the dead and everything else that they're able to do shockingly good in many, many instances. And like everything else, there are frauds mixed in there. Most of these frauds, by the way, come from government agencies that actually push people out there that are frauds, build them up, and then expose them so that they can discredit the entire industry. Then you have your out-and-out, quote, debunker types. And, that's what the Mythbusters really got into. They became debunkers. And while some of their more intelligent cast, their sidekicks, there's Carrie and 2 or 3 other guys that were there for a while, when they tried to investigate at one time on a show, I remember they were going to try and do some pyramid tests. Heinemann, the big intellectual, nasty guy who thinks he's so smart, you'll find out how smart he is in a minute in terms of his credentials. If you can call him that. We want to get away from this New Age namby-pamby nonsense. We don't want to test anything like that. First of all, it takes a lot of very highly qualified people to do tests properly in this scientific area, because you have to understand the energies, and people don't. It's not about testing something. You have to have knowledge of subtle subatomic particle energies, how they're affected, and pyramid energies, etc. You got to know what you're doing. And I've seen amazing things with pyramids, and I've seen amazing failures. And of course, that is pretty much the story of all facets of life. We also come to find out that these guys are big supporters of the unamazing Randy and are giving him money. We don't know, I can't really spend the time to research how much they've given over the years and how much support, but they have donated objects, including one of their very scientific and advanced products they offered to Randy to auction off, which was one of Adam's farts trapped in a bottle. But they are strong supporters of that, strong supporters of the fact that it's science, because after all, we're scientists here, and we're proving whether this works. First of all, a scientist and a person who tests anything is not one and the same. Now, people who are good at testing things may not be scientific at all, and I'm not sure there's all that much science. You're not supposed to be scientifically testing something unless it's a scientific basis to be tested. If you want to test molecules or chemical substances, well, you may need scientific expertise in that area. If you're testing myths where you're supposed to take a pound of coffee and a pound of baking soda, you don't need to know what the actual chemical makeup of those two things are. It either works or doesn't work, because it wasn't scientists who produced the results to begin with. If it was, there would be tested data recorded and published, which there'd be no reason to test it because it would have proved it or disproved it already. But anyone that goes into anything with a prejudice is an ignorant idiot. And prejudiced and coming to pre-conclusions whether something is good or bad. If I did that with their entire life and all their crap that they did, or science in general, nothing would have been achieved anywhere. You have to go in with an open mind. I certainly don't believe anything that science tells us, because regular schmientists, common science, has provided us with failure from day one. Nothing today is like it used to be in the past. And all that silly, stupid, dirty technology that they've been pushing on us for the last 100 years is all crap. And they still are pushing that on us when there are alternatives that are just even older than their original crap science. Like the fuel cell that was invented in 1889. Well, isn't that interesting? The hydrogen fuel cell, which everybody wants to ignore because it works so good and it's so cheap. So these are the kind of people that we're, and of course, we're not stupid idiot buffoons. We're scientists accepting all these myths. I mean, it's insulting, and of course people believe this. I guess they believe it in the same way in the TV show The Big Bang, that Caltech scientists have to live together in a room and don't seem to have any money and drive crappy little cars. It's hilarious. Who are these idiots that are doing this? I don't know why they think if these people made money. I guess nobody would like them if they were really the $200,000 to $300,000 a year that a Caltech professor makes, or maybe more, not to mention all the other things they get. But I guess they wouldn't be interesting if they were rich. I don't know. But they're far from paid tiny little salaries. Professors do very well with jobs that are exceedingly easy. Pretty much all the teaching professions from grade school up to college are the cushiest jobs in the world, and these people do virtually nothing. And the higher you get up, the less they do. They have more and more teacher aides that do all the work, and they may show up for a lecture or not, which is a couple hours a day, and they're gone. Another illusion that maybe they should have unmasked. So, the mythology that these people portray and produce themselves while trying to tell us what isn't real is amusing in itself. But so the bottom line here is that they want to come out as pseudoscientists, or even not even pseudoscientists, because they're not even pseudo. They come out and portray themselves as scientists. They come out and portray themselves as there's some hidden education. And some of their assistants apparently did have some technical abilities. I think one was a robot expert, and the others. Of course, they were the people on the show that were kind of the helpers and did their own experiments through most of the show. And so let me be a little more technically correct here. So is the main stars of this show, and let's be quite clear about it. This is Hollywood. They're stars of shows. These are the characters that head the show: Jamie Heineman and Adam Savage, the two uneducated, buffoonish slobs that portray themselves as scientists. And for many years, they had three other main people. There are other ones that have been with the show for shorter periods of time, so we won't cover them. But there was Tori Bellisi. There was Grant Imahara. And there is... what is the other one? Oh, Carrie Byron, the one girl there. They were with the show for pretty much all years but one. The last year, the year that they were canceled here, thank God, because the show was really boring without the other three people there. were the sidekicks and did a lot of experiments. And apparently, um, Carrie Byron, the one girl, was interested in more testing metaphysical things. As I said, tried to do that with a pyramid once. And Jamie came up, the genius guy, he knows everything and he's so smart. And said how ridiculous all this stuff is, and let's move on and never test any of this kind of namby-pamby new age stuff again. Let's get some dynamite. I don't know how much or how it works, but let's blow up some. And of course, none of these sidekicks had any education except Grant Imahara, who is an electronics and radio expert, who did graduate from USC, certainly a fine private expensive school in Los Angeles. And of course, their main background is still movie special effects. So he worked for Lucas Studios, like almost all these people did, Lucasfilms, and so forth. So he has a BS degree in electrical engineering. So I misspoke. I think he stated he was a robotics expert. Apparently not. It's electrical engineering, and but moved quickly into writing and Hollywood, etc. So he doesn't really have any formal education in terms of practical application of his engineering knowledge other than what he learned in college. Now, Tori, who is a guy who's from Monterey, California, is another special effects guy that worked for Industrial Light and Sound and did some of the Star Wars stuff, etc. And really doesn't seem to have any educational background at all. In science, I should say. I'm sorry. Again, I misspoke here. I'm trying to find my notes. Apparently he graduated from San Francisco State University Film School. So he's a film guy. He went and worked for special effects again. So regardless, they ain't no science. We have one guy who got an electrical engineering degree, and I'm not sure how, that's obviously one of the sciences, but I don't know how that qualifies them for much else. Now, Carrie Byron, the one girl, studied at San Francisco State University again, graduating magna cum laude with a BA in film and sculpture. It sounds like a lot of these shows on TV, like all the ghost hunters, seem to be all film students. Is that a prerequisite for the occult sciences? Kind of interesting. I didn't know that you had to go to film school to learn occultism. Damn! Did I fuck up? So, so here we go as the cast of characters here. We have one person in the entire cast that is an electrical engineer, and the minute he got graduated from school, he went into writing and Hollywood and film production. So he has no practical experience in doing this or being in an industry or working in robotics or anything else as a professional aspect. Sounds like these are real scientific-y types to me. When I build my new outhouse, I want Jamie there. So basically, they're all special effects people. And I'm not sure what a special effects is, when you really get down to it. I mean, we know what it is, but what are the qualifications? Building models, hiding behind something and waving, most of those devices and so forth you see on in movies and television generally have manual people behind them. So if a door opens or something, you're not going to spend, $15,000 building electric pull doors that you step in front of and pop open, like in Star Trek, where you hear that, whew. You know what that is? Two guys got ropes and they pull that door open and they add sound effects. That costs you about $50. So, all these things are done like that, and most machines are done the same way. So that's the kind of advanced scientific knowledge you need to do stuff. Then you need the real advanced scientific knowledge, which most of my friends did. I was never big at it myself, and that is model building. You get the kits of Frankenstein and you paint them up in car kits, and you glue the models together and you paint them and they look cool. Real science. From what I understand, that's those kind of scientists who put man on the moon. So, we have these kind of genius scientists who are judging what works and what doesn't work out there. But let's not forget our two heroes. Jamie Heineman, that gruff old man. They act like an old man. He's really only, now of this date, he's only 59 years old. So when he started this, he was 49. But of course, he comes off like an old man. He's the grumpy old man to Adam's young kitty thing. He wasn't that much younger than him, but. And of course, he's the genius and knows that everything is lying bullshit, and he knows everything because, after all, he's got a college degree from the University of Indiana in Russian linguistics. What? Oh. I guess that's the scientific stuff you study so you can listen to the Russians who build the rockets so you know how to do real science work. Isn't that what you do? So he basically got a degree in something extremely easy. He probably had that background and somehow knew it or had learned that language in high school or wherever he did. And of course, this is typical of all the Mexican kids that went to my high schools. They all took Spanish, got A's because they knew how to speak the language. So I'm sure that's part of his life. And of course, I can't affirm it. Maybe Heineman has Russian background. Maybe daddy spoke Russian. Maybe mommy did. Who knows? It's hard to tell without asking to get further into it, and claims all these goofy jobs that have actually nothing to do with anything scientific, and I don't know how he got ins to do it, but apparently was able to get into things, and I don't know if it was because of his linguistic abilities or not, but he claims to, along with that great degree from Indiana State University. Of course, he claims he's a wild kid and he didn't have any family. Well, somebody paid for his college. Daddy wouldn't pay for my college. He claims to have been a certified diver, wilderness survival expert, boat captain, pet shop owner, animal wrangler, machinist, concrete inspector, and a chef even. So, not a single one of those has any scientific basis whatsoever, and some of them do take a medium amount of skill. I'm assuming if he was a concrete inspector, he had to study that area, and I don't know what he means by a chef. Is that working for McDonald's or filming a restaurant, or I should say running a restaurant? I don't know where that comes from or what the whole reality there is, but it's sketchy at best, but it still doesn't add up to the fact unless... and they've done shows on cooking. Maybe that's helped him. But ain't no scientist here. And now he's an expert on metaphysics. And, we can't respect these buffoonish idiot slobs, these cretin slime-sucking freaks that want to come out and tell us occultists what we should know and believe when they have absolutely no training, no background whatsoever, because we're just a bunch of dumb fucks. Well, apparently they've never met an occult scientist, nor a person who has a doctorate in occult science and who has studied that as well as subtle energy physics, otherwise known as subatomic particle research in a scientific setting. and understands quite blatantly what all these energies are and can explain them and demonstrate them, but I wonder if he could demonstrate his IQ other than hitting himself on the head with a hammer with his goofy little beret on. So, I mean, here they go again. And, after that illustrious career, apparently that qualified him to run and become involved in special effects. And of course, people get into these industries because they have connections, plain and simple. So somehow he has a connection. Somehow he knew somebody. Somehow they got connected, or I don't know what skill he had which would interest any special effects people. But these jobs pay a lot of money, and it all goes to buddies, pals, and friends or something. So I don't know what any of this would particularly set him up as a special effects person. He claims to be the owner of MI5 Industries, or M5 Industries, I misspoke there. And he's known, among other things, for being a robot war guy. I guess he built robots and so forth because of those basic model building skills, man. You can build them models. So, that's his background. So his educational background and his follow-up education is Russian linguist. That's what he has a degree in. And he's a pet shop owner, an animal wrangler, a machinist, a cement inspector, and he fries eggs. Let's build a rocket to Mars. We got the perfect guy that can figure that out. But let not forget, because probably it's Adam Savage that's the genius. Yeah, he's got to be the guy. The other guy prances around like the bed, spitting out, chewing tobacco on the floor with his beret on, bald as a cucumber. It's got to be the other guy. Adam Whitley Savage, 48 years old. 10 years younger than grumpy old man. 59's old, we got trouble. From New York City. Was raised in Sleepy Hollow town of Westchester, New York. Generally a very wealthy area, even though it's haunted by a headless rider. He actually went to Sleepy Hollow High, one of my favorite high schools. And his daddy was a painter and animator known for his work on Sesame Street, which I guess explains why he lived in Sleepy Hollow, one of the very expensive areas of New York State. As well as Mommy, who was a psychotherapist, which I'm assuming made actually money as well. His sister is an artist. And apparently, as a kid, he loved to go to bike shops and fix stuff. Got a broken bike, mister? I'm a smart kid. I'll fix it for you. But that's not really what he excelled at as a child. He wanted to become an actor. It's acting that I love. So basically all his life, all the way to the age of 19, which are very formative years, he was studying acting. The science of acting, because we want to keep this scientific. The science of acting. You mix one gene with another, and sometimes it comes out with another DNA, and, Tom Cruise pops up. Sometimes we don't know who else could pop up. Silent Bob could pop up. We don't know. That's the science of acting. So apparently at 19, he figured out what a rotten actor he is. And you can tell on screen, this guy has no screen presence at all. He spent 19 years of his life in fartsy-artsy New York drama colleges, learning Shakespeare and speaking like a British man, hoping that Richard Burton would piss upon his head and give him enlightenment. All of that And he's got one of the worst personalities I've ever seen on screen. Not only that, he's a genius and knows the science of metaphysics and what works and what doesn't, because after 19, he builds models. Glue them together and paint them. I'm a genius. So apparently he had this lifelong love and attraction to model building and must have been doing it for many, many years. And apparently after finding out what a rotten actor he was, how incompetent he was, and after working as an animator, graphic designer, you know, those scientific things again that take a lot of math to figure out how to draw something, a carpenter, a projectionist, a film developer, a television presenter, a set designer, a toy designer, and he owned a gallery full of soup cans. Apparently, his skill as a model builder impressed enough people that he was building models for everything from The Matrix to Space Cowboys to Galaxy Quest to Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So he was, and building models is high-grade model certainly is a wonderful and amazing thing to see how they come through. Of course, I've seen these in so many places highlighted on the web, but it certainly is a skill. But apparently he did this, and he has taught model making in the Department of Industrial Design at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. And for some reason, Savage has become, reading right off of his bio here, has become a regular presenter at magician Unamazing Randy's annual Skeptic concert. And Savage credits his introduction to the skeptic community to Michael Shermer, the head of the Skeptic Society and the person who writes their magazine. How that fits in, again, he's going to say, well, you know, I built a model of a ship that flies through space, so it can never happen, because, you know, all that stuff you're going to see in space are just going to be models. No way you can build a real spaceship. I made a fake one. So, I mean, this is the kind of logic these buffoonish idiots from Goofy Town Monkeyhead want to tell you that they're so genius. Now, he basically doesn't, he has a acting degree from some goofball place in some San Francisco where you pick up trash 2 nights a week and they give you a certificate. Absolutely no scientific degree. He did graduate high school, though, 1985. And of course, we know how that prepares you for life. But nothing of any kind of scientific. He builds models. He's good with his hands. He can make funny looking things that are tiny that emit bigger things. So, I guess we have to depend on. So that leaves us one buffoonish idiot that knows no science, and the other one who doesn't have any credentials whatsoever except a art school, who builds models, and we have a Russian language expert. I tell you, we're ready to build rockets to go to Mars now. If we hire these people, we can be there in months. And let's not forget the other guys, you know. Tory, who has no background whatsoever. He was blowing stuff up and somehow got into the film industry. And of course, you know, Grant, who was an electrical engineer from USC, but no practical knowledge. And of course, the cute little girly types that did movie stuff and the sculpture. She can carve the outside of the planetary ships in a very fine way that imitates the great sculptures. So they're all of a sudden, because of this fantastic educational background and their in-depth into understanding the quantum physics of real life and the biophysical reaction of all these things, and of course the very important chemical and reaction of the human body and the consciousness of the body, and they've studied the mind for years. They know the psychological implications. So they know all this from going to art school and learning Ruski, that they decided to come out and make statements of what is real and not real, and what is obtainable and not attainable, based on the buffoonish idiot who runs Skeptic Magazine. Who, by the way, got married this year, so I guess it was wrong when I said that this guy may have turned against the church because of his sexual orientation. So, one down there. Of course, it could be a fake marriage, I don't know. But, so here's your scientific cast to do things. And I'd like to add, there was an imitator of this show, which is very common around the world in Britain, called Brainiac. This was very much set as a comedy show, but of course, Mythbusters is a comedy show as well. I don't know how serious it is. They try and act like scientists. Brainiac acted more like a comedy show, but they did real scientific experiments. Many of them were similar to what Mythbusters did. One of the major tests they did is that Mythbusters test whether there is an actual sound or frequency that would make you lose control of your bowels, otherwise known as shitting thy pants. This is an old myth of technology that is out there, and nobody knew if it was real or not. Of course it is. It shouldn't be that difficult, really, to do that. So, of course, like all these people, which you'll see throughout TV, they bring in some electronic specialist. A guy who knows everything about music and nothing really about anything else. And, of course, they can operate those complicated machines to make musical sounds. But I don't see, again, how that necessarily qualifies you to verify. But, okay, you bring in a sound specialist because you're dealing with sound. And, of course, they got no results from it. Brainiac tried the same thing, and they got results from it. And there are several different tests like that they came out with completely different results, and were able to verify the myth. And it's one of the other problems, and I have this with all these people, is while the Mythbusters try and make things happen by fixing the way the procedures are done just to see if it can be done, meaning whatever that may be, putting gunpowder in a lock and lighting it. Of course, that doesn't blow open the lock, but if you use a pound of gunpowder and you stick it in the lock, will that blow it open? So they try and fix results like that to see if it'll work at any strength. Which in itself is kind of bad, but I guess it's kind of an interesting way to approach things. But their attitude is basically, from, even though they try and fix things, is the fact that this is just all crap. And we're here to prove it's crap. Instead of saying we're here to prove that this could possibly work. And there's a bad attitude like that taken into unusual scientific research, like the occult sciences, really ensures, if you have that attitude, that you'll come up with negative results. Not because it takes a participatory attitude to prove something that's so difficult to measure and show results to. It takes a participatory attitude to produce results, not to fix results. There's a big difference between assisting to the point of making something happen as much as you possibly can, kind of like they do, but without fixing it, which they kind of fix it. So if you put a pound of gunpowder in a lock, you're going to blow the hell out of it. So, they tend to have that attitude. And, of course, that's a real problem. Apparently, this carries into their genius understanding of metaphysics, and they probably read a couple of magazines, skeptic magazines, and, we know everything now. And, Skeptic Magazine is not, while the person who writes that is highly educated, I don't think he's scientifically educated. I think he's got a degree in psychology and other things. A lot of mind stuff which really don't equate to the metaphysical world unless you're looking for mental illness, which is what he is doing, or he is paid to do most likely, or has been alleged on numerous occasions by so many people. So what does that mean? So these guys with no education, no background, knowing nothing about metaphysics, not even have any interest in metaphysics. I mean, there's some people, like, I don't know, people know it, the old movie star, TV show guy as well, Jackie Gleason, was super interested in metaphysics. And, of course, I don't know if he ever spent any money on it, and how he investigated it, I don't know. He had a huge metaphysical library about all of those things, including UFOs, etc. But, most people don't do anything about it or don't seek out information. But here we go again with this actual reality that is perpetrated by people that they are some sort of scientists, and they make statements about something they know nothing about, but it gives the credibility because they're scientists, they know what they're talking about, they're television stars, to criticize fields that they have no business in. And I'm not going to tolerate that from anybody anywhere. Neither should any other person into metaphysics tolerate the fact of ignorant idiots that know nothing about these fields making these statements, when real scientists that in many cases are even blocked and stopped from speaking and publishing papers by the stupid government-controlled community are not given any time whatsoever. Because it doesn't serve anything unless you live in the gunk sewer garbage of common world, consuming their crap products and making richer their implanted freak people that they have appointed and control who run the industries. Bill Gates. I'm just amazed how little technology really is coming out of any value. When we look at technology now, it's all just a phone. It's a variation of the phone. The phone is over 100 years old. It really hasn't changed. Of course, we want to change it now because we don't want to use the phone for what it was invented for, and that's taking your voice and moving. No, we want to type a message here. I mean, what is it? I mean, basically a phone now is just a combination of several tools together. It's a phone, it's a TV, it's a fax machine, There's no new technology there. It's small and you carry it with you. Woo, whippy-doo. So these kind of people give credibility when they knock those things, and it makes the whole industry do it. And what they do is they keep the status quo, just as the Amazing Randy's whole hidden agenda is. His paid hidden agenda from the Black Lodge, which anyone who knows anything could figure that out, and continues through these idiot magicians who, by the way, are extremely wealthy, and there is, they are worth, Penn and Teller individually, each one is worth $180 million. If you don't think you want to come out and bash people who may have real powers and take money away from you and give a show, you don't think there's enough money? You don't think $180 million worth of money in your bank isn't worth going after Uri Geller? He's a rotten fraud. Don't go to his show, go to my show. Isn't that really what they're saying? Why is it any of their business? It's their business because he's competition. And some of the richest performers in the world are these illusionists. And recording artists, by the way. And out of the 10 riches, 6 of those are black people, which is interesting. So if you don't think there's enough money in all this, Chris Angel's another one who tries to portray himself as this great mystical being, and has stated it on interview shows, as I've said many times, is that these ain't tricks, this is what I do. What do you mean this ain't tricks? What is it you do? You're an illusionist. This is a trick. That's what you do. So, the reality of all this kind of buffoonish behavior of these poppin' Chris Freaknoids is really appalling, and it hurts all of society and is basically ape monkey based thinking out of the lowest snail realm of crap release garbage. But they have an impact. Oh, we're the great educated scientists. We say that this doesn't work and any they don't know anything. It's very funny that the show Brainiac out of England got different results than they got on the same exact tests. And there were numerous of these that were done. Now, why is that? That's because they aren't scientists. There are no controls here. This is a testing show, and I don't know if testing, as I opened up this discussion with, has anything to do with science whatsoever. A tester is a tester, and the best kind of tester is an uneducated person who knows nothing about the mechanics of something that just uses something. I mean, you test a door hinge not by science, but by opening it thousands and hundreds of thousands of times. Did that work? Well, we don't need a scientist to tell us that. You just do that. I mean, the ridiculousness of this is unbelievable. But it's also extremely important, as I said, and this is part of the whole media, because this isn't any different. Wait until you hear about the information on George Norrie, the great radio commentator with all his years of experience. Well, that's a funny one. I'm going to do that next, boys and girls. So this is the whole idea of what you've got here. It's a complete and total joke. These people know nothing. It's an entertainment show. These people are nothing more than Hollywood special effects people. You know, saying that these people know anything is like saying that a person who builds facades for the movie industry knows how to build a quality house. Now, a facade is just the front of the house. If you look behind it, you see it's held up by sticks. Well, I wouldn't hire that guy to build my house. So that's the kind of stupidity that's portrayed here. And then they try and push in a few people, and, you know, they brought in the Japanese guy so he could give credibility to this. I'm a scientist. When the guy was basically a screenwriter after he got out of this electrical, why he got into, who knows why he got electrical engineering degree, but immediately went into all these other fields for whatever reason. It obviously was easy for him, but that doesn't make him a scientist. Then you've got some sculpture girl, and you got a guy who's blowing up things. This is your cast of scientific geniuses. So they don't even mix anybody in there that has any kind of credibility. So they should stay the hell out of other people's fields. They should shut their damn mouths. And why are they supporting the alleged Black Lodge organization, the Skeptics Group, and the unamazing Randy, who has numerous alleged connections to chemical and drug companies and to the federal government as well? And conveniently, like so many Black Lodge members, is gay and hid that for years. That was his greatest magic trick. And he's telling everybody else they should be honest and truthful when for 80 years this guy hid the fact that he was a homosexual. Now, if you expect everybody else to tell the truth, you better tell the truth about yourself. But that's amazing Randy, not Goofball 1 and 2 here, and his Chicklet Three Stooges friends. So that's just another summation of another credible scientific show brought to you by the Hollywood producers at You're a Sucker TV. And tune in next week when we'll lie and conceive rotten, stupid things that make no sense at all and give you experts that have no expertise whatsoever, but you will think so. Stay tuned.